Welcome to a muzzled chat. Folks, we are in for a treat today. We have some breaking news, some great news. So for a lot of folks that are struggling out there with Lyme disease, we really want to breathe some light, some hope, some solutions, because my goodness, there's some really amazing things just around the corner. It actually goes beyond the scope of just Lyme disease, because this type of awareness and paying attention to our health, anyone today can benefit from information I feel we're going to be going over. So I just want to welcome Wendy back to Unmuzzled Chat. How are you doing today, Wendy?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm terrific. Thank you. This has been a long time coming. You are a very busy woman, and that's okay, because I know you're out there on the front lines fighting on behalf of women, fighting on behalf of all of us struggling with Lyme, and just trying to up everyone's health. And you're out there connecting a lot of the dots on important levels that I don't even know all the connections you're doing. That's why we're here today, and I'm excited to discuss it. I know you have exciting news, so I'm just grateful to have this opportunity to talk with you right here, right now. And I just hope we can nail it out of the park for those that need it.
Yeah, thank you for having me back. And what an awful thing to be is too busy, out advocating. So yeah, thank you for having me on again. And I'll take just a minute to kind of recap. We connected for being in a Lyme support group.
Right.
I've had Lyme 3 times. I have been Lyme negative for 9 months, after positive for 5 years, after being misdiagnosed for 10. So to
Wow,
be
there's
here,
hope.
yeah, to be here is great.
And you have a beautiful backdrop there. You're right there where in Pennsylvania, and you mentioned Tick Central, and you sent what, out of 6 ticks, 5 of them tested positive for Lyme right there in your backyard.
In my backyard, fortunately, they didn't have co-infections. Although with my Lyme infections, I did have different co-infections. But
Right.
yeah, Western Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania itself, 11 out of the last 13 years has been #1 in confirmed cases. And I
Wow.
stress the word confirmed cases because so many of us go undiagnosed. But
Right.
Western Pennsylvania has the highest counties. If I go into my vet, it says 4 out of 5 dogs have Lyme disease, which means that the ticks in our area have Lyme disease. So we need to be more aware of it, which is,
Yes.
why I've been so busy.
You just hit the nail on the head. Awareness is key.
Yeah.
We all need to educate ourselves on it and advocate on behalf of this, because the reality of it is we don't even understand as to how many this is infected, this is impacting, because
Right.
it's generational. It's such a sleeper disease. I mean, I had it for over 30 years myself and went misdiagnosed my whole life. And I feel like one of the lucky ones ended up with the Lyme positive diagnosis, and it ended up inevitably going chronic. And the only reason I'm able to sit across from you here, Wendy, today, it's solely due to that Lyme positive diagnosis, which so many do not get. And I know there's, let's just say, discrepancies with the Western medicine, and it's really a hard one to hone in on. And that through awareness, proper awareness, should build the proper momentum to upping the testing and all these things. So I'm excited. Hopefully we can do just that, get that momentum.
Yeah. And one of the things that I'm doing is I volunteer for I start my training next week. So I'm going to be a director. And if there's other people out in Pennsylvania that are looking to do things, there are groups and organizations. So the Pennsylvania Lyme Resource Network has a program actually through the Department of Health called DARE. to be tick aware. And it's a program
Mm.
that goes to schools, it goes to organizations, and they will give a free presentation on ticks. And I'm going to doing training to be a director so I can, go out into my community because nobody knows. And I had a friend who called me and said that one of their friends children had a tick on him at school, and the nurse called and asked, what do you want me to do with the tick? Do you want me to take it off? And it's like, there should be proper training out there for what these nurses and the schools can do. We know, don't leave it on. We know, don't squeeze it so it pushes all of the madness into you. And there's certain
Mm.
tweezers. So I'll be excited to go through this training and to be able to use that. And it'll tie in nice to the homeschooling that I do too. So I can, do these programs with other homeschool moms and, bring
Yeah.
awareness and
Wow, you just brought up some good points that I haven't yet even touched on regarding the removal. Because, yeah, you don't want to excrete all them toxins. They may not have really infected just because
right.
it could be freshly bitten. So where would one get that information? I mean, you just covered some of it. You just covered that you're going to be supplying that for people, but where would a parent get that information?
Sure. They could go right now to palyme.org and
Mm-hmm.
see all the programs.
Yeah.
LYMEDISEASE.org as well has a huge things for children because I believe the statistic is 80% of the Lyme patients are children and often undiagnosed or misdiagnosed with autism or some spectrum disorder when it's
Wow.
the Lyme, it's the neuro Lyme, it's the PANS and the PANDAS. So, these conversations can be had and there's advocates everywhere. We just have to, do what we're doing here today and just get our voices out.
Right. 100%. You said palime.org. What was that other one?
LymeDisease.org.
Just Lyme. Okay.
Yeah.
LymeDisease.org.
Yeah.
All right. So let's dive in. I mean, congratulations on breathing light, more light even into my battle with Lyme. Luckily, I'm clearing out of the woods.
Mhm.
It's been a struggle. It's like I'm kind of been weaving in and out of those woods for some time now, but I really feel we're finally honing in on some things that are kind of distancing being lost in those woods, so to speak.
Mhm.
And I'm so grateful for that. And I just out the gate want to tell anyone that's lost in those woods, it is worth fighting with everything you got to beat this dang thing. And it can be done. Everyone's situation seems to be a little unique and different.
Right.
So it does take patience. It does take some trial and error. That definitely was the case for me. Yeah, you went over a bit of it yourself.
Yeah.
I think it was anyone with Lyme can pretty much relate to that. But here you are, sharp as a tack, and you're doing amazing things. So you've been real busy. Let's dive in on some of the things that has kept you so busy. What are you up to over there, Wendy? Come
Sure.
on, give us some good news.
I'll tell you the best part is so for those that didn't hear the original one, by trade I'm a professional photographer. I became bedridden from Lyme. There's days I didn't know my son's name, and there's days that I
Wow.
didn't know if I would survive. But I found some functional doctors that helped get me better, but I still couldn't get there. So I turned to genetics. Fast forward through the long story, I became a genetic practitioner, a holistic health coach, and a functional nutrition expert because I needed to know how the cells worked. I needed to know what foods worked. I needed to know what genetic issues were holding up my healing. So I have been working as a genetic practitioner, but I just signed as part of the remote clinical team for the DNA company. So I'm actually working with a functional genomics team. So instead of me doing all of the legwork, I will do the coaching and consulting, and I can analyze your genetics. I can point you in the right directions, but more importantly, we can sit down and look at your genetics and say, okay, if you're going to use pharmaceuticals, here's how we pinpoint it. Here's how your liver works. Here's how your kidneys work. Or we can get you with a doctor. And what I did myself manually by cross-referencing my genetics and doing all the math and science, they can do in 6 to 7 months with a practitioner dedicated to, these genetic things that just seem to bubble up with Lyme disease. So that's my biggest news is I am um, gonna change lives in the genetic world, and I've been using my data for studying and research, and some of these things are just keep coming up, which I'll share in a little bit of what those genetic pieces are and kind of how they can work. But to go from a photographer to bedridden to a health coach to now working with a clinical team with these complex Lyme patients where they can't get healing and they're told, oh, it's genetic, go take some medication, which was my case. Now we can go in, we can say, okay, let's fine tune your medication. Or guess what? Like me, pharmaceuticals don't work at all. So I'm taking herbs, I'm doing a Rife machine, I'm doing a sauna, like you seem to
Mm,
love your sauna. So,
yes, I do. Well, you think about it. I mean, Lyme disease or not,
right.
we live in a very toxic time.
Yeah.
And so much of it has to do with, yeah, it can be environmental, but so much of it is just even the food and the water we're drinking. We don't need to dive too much into that, but it's just, gosh dang it, like all our health, I feel everyone out there is diminished to an extent. It's obviously crucial that we constantly strive to
Right.
become the best version of ourselves, in this life. From what we know, it's the only one we got. So let's maximize it. And I want to help promote people to do that, just that, to become the best versions of themselves. Because obviously, that would just be a beautiful thing,
Right.
but it would help on the world stages as well. That Bond Charge infrared sauna blanket, I love because it definitely has helped me. I mean, my goodness, my skin has actually been clearing up in ways it never has. Like, I've always dealt with skin issues my whole life. I just turned 40 and I was getting pimples and boils like I was. It's kind of gross, I know, but I was still in high school or junior high. It's like it
Yeah.
never ended. And that may sound trivial compared to other Lyme symptoms, but it's just manifesting in a
Right.
visual way
Right.
on the real benefits that are happening internally.
Right.
And it's helping my cognitive and the energies and help balancing everything out. And you can't necessarily function correctly with any parasitical load
Right.
or heavy metals, molds, plastic, BPA toxins. So ramp up your body's natural ways of detoxifying. In my eyes, is one of the kind of baseline simplistic things to do. Just
Right.
don't even need a diagnosis for to start integrating into your life and upping your health.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so many things that we could do just, but it's again, it's that awareness piece, like drinking spring water over really toxic
Mm,
local water that's full of who knows what. So,
tap.
those are the things that, can make a huge difference. And, we don't talk about them enough.
Right. Yep. You said it. That in and of itself, I feel, is proof to the diminished state we are walking in,
Right.
that we aren't even willing, or how would you say it, that we just simply aren't connecting that dot, so to speak, of and absorbing that knowledge.
Right.
It's healthy to question things and ask it, should I drink that? Should I eat that? And do your research. Okay, so if this is a natural well or something, when last has it been even kind of tested and things of
Right.
that nature to make sure there's no breach on anything harmful?
Right. Right. Yeah, we take so much for granted. I mean, when we're all caught up in it, and then when Lyme hits, we have to slow down, and then we have to come back, to life, so
Oof.
to speak, and wake up and be like, oh my gosh, why did I take all this for granted? And and then you and me get to talk, and we're like, wow, like, okay, you're right. We've we've been through it, and those of us that are through it are trying to pull everybody up and say, hey, look, we can heal. Like, I've
Yeah.
been told that, I will never heal from Lyme. Well, I'm negative. I have no symptoms. I know that my body genetically cannot get the xenobacterias out. So guess what?
Wow.
The sauna, I'm doing all of these, additional detoxes. So I believe I can heal. I believe, I'm in these groups and I feel so helpless because I was there. There are days I didn't think I'd survive. So, those of us that are there, if we can just shine the light and, it took me going through genetics. I'm not saying everybody needs to go through genetics, but the cost is low. It's not that expensive. There's payment options at this point. I mean, you could go, for $300 and do it yourself, or, 300 or a few thousand. And, the CEO of the company that I'm working under, the goal is to lower your biological age by 20 years. And I don't know
Wow.
I don't know if I've shared my age, but I have not only helped my health, but reversed a lot of my health. Like I have never felt inside and outside better in my whole life because I just didn't know. I didn't know the genetic weak spots, but I take a
Wow.
custom supplement every day for my genetics.
I I'm a believer there's something to it. Like as soon as you hopped on, you look far younger and more youthful. Clearly there's something to this. So you attribute more breakthrough relating to all this genetic testing
Yeah.
and the information that brings out. I guess it's just taking out, it seems, some of the guesswork.
Yeah, it's how I look at it. So, and some of it is, I will. This will be a nice transition into the other things that have been keeping me busy with the politics of Lyme. But,
Okay.
there's just so much. Uh, there's just so much. There's just so many testing and so many options. But if we look at genetics, we can see that there's a lot more women than men. So then we got to look at,
Mm,
okay, a hormone issue.
right.
The trigger is the MTHFR. Everybody talks about it. Well, 40% of Americans have it. Well, it's in our food. It's going to cause us issues. Then we go into the insurance company, right? The insurance company doesn't want to recognize Lyme. They don't want to talk about
Right.
Lyme. So, we battle all of these things, but if we get the noise out, I needed to eat certain foods to help my body heal. So vitamin D deficiency, right? So there's studies out there. Is the vitamin D deficiency caused by the illness, or is the illness caused by the vitamin D deficiency? So that's
Mm,
in the science right now, is they're looking at both of those. But I know my body needs more, than I don't have the right pathways and enzymes for certain things. So I have to up my vitamin D. When I go to the beach, I feel spectacular. Like, so all of these things, like if I pay attention to what I'm eating in my environment, my body really craves. So they all match genetically. So I have all of that documented. I've documented through photos and my medical records for a book. But yeah, there's things like heavy metals, right? A lot of us in the Lyme that are sick, we can't detox heavy metals. So that's the methylation pathway. That's not the MTHFR, it's something else. So then
mm.
we might need a different type of supplement. So we can really fine tune and stop the guesswork and stop the years of frustration, and more importantly, stop the wasting of our money on trying to
Is
get
that
better.
the mother, the mother
Yes.
effergene
Yes.
or something? Is that what
Yes.
they call that? So
Mother
I just,
effer, yes.
oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
still, it's a forever work. Like there's so much to this health. There's so much to
Right.
Lyme disease in and of itself. That's where we genuinely, I mean, man, you take away, that's why, as you know, like our
Right.
hearts go out to anyone struggling because it can become such a neurological hindrance. Because it's so, as it stands right now, it's like you, in a way, need to become your own solution, an expert, but you're at this diminished state. Like you can't even, it gets to a point you can't even read or absorb the information,
Right.
and my heart just goes out because you take away the serotonin and dopamine and cortisol and
Mhm.
everything's out of whack. No wonder the statistics to suicide are just so damning. We need remedy yesterday. We need to narrow this path down for folks as quickly as possible and just create solutions.
Right.
Where was I gonna go with that? was gonna say something there. Let's just call it Lime Brain. I hope it comes back. I'm getting pretty good at the editing thing, Wendy. So we don't have to sit here and like be nervous. And at any point you got to take a break or something, just let me know. We're
Okay.
cool.
Okay.
The harder you think sometimes, the
Right?
further it
I know.
runs.
I almost got lost once. I'm like, wait, let's loop this back.
I, it's even debatable as to whether I even edit that segment because that
Right? Because it's a
captures,
hit.
it genuinely captures even being out of the woods. I
Yeah.
mean, there is a human element,
Yeah.
even those that are seemingly the healthiest among us are going to have those moments.
Right.
And that's why I feel it's so easily chalked up with Lyme disease. Oh, just buckle up. We all deal with that. We all don't want to get out of bed. We all get groggy. We all lose our train of thought, but it is a totally different level. We're here to tell you it is a totally different thing. It's
It
not
is.
made up at all. Like coming out of the woods, it's just like, wow, this is what life is like. This is just even a taste of what normalcy is. Like, wow. I
Yeah.
wouldn't wish that on anybody. It's obviously it's been growing. It's a big issue. Wendy, I think it's gotten to a point, I feel as though everyone, if we could get effective testing, everyone should get that testing done.
Mhm.
Every single person alive today,
Yeah.
worldwide. And I think the findings would more so be it would start becoming a surprise that you don't have it versus having it.
Absolutely. 100%.
So the CDC recognition of like 500,000 in North America alone, I believe that is egregiously low because this is the most, as we've stated, misdiagnosed and undiagnosed disease known to humankind.
Yeah.
And it's the chameleon and obviously just keeps getting misdiagnoses, this and that, never really getting to the root of the issue. I mean, there's a clinic here. I don't know if, I mentioned it to you before, but they originally started as their grassroots is a cancer clinic, but they started onboarding Lyme throughout the years. And as they started understanding Lyme more, they started looking over at their cancer patients with curiosity.
Hmm.
So they started testing their cancer patients. Lo and behold, they found out over 74% of their cancer patients had Lyme and didn't even know about it. So, with something that is causing inflammation throughout the body, is suppressing your immune system, why is that surprising?
Correct.
So, based on that finding, my goodness, imagine if we took that even cancer clinic testing globally uh, and came to find out percentages that supported anything near that, then hypothetically, potentially, we could eradicate 74% of futuristic cancers by focusing on the root of the issues and, stopping from having these poor souls having to even deal with this cancer to begin with.
Hmm.
So there's a lot to that. And that's not even to mention the other 300 other illnesses this disease mimics. So it's huge.
Yeah.
It's so big.
It is, and I don't know if you have seen the quiet epidemic, but it's the PA
Yes,
Lyme Resource Network. They were showing that, and
really.
it made it on Jeopardy, so we're hoping that it gets out more. But like, I
Mm,
mean, we all have these stories. Like, I am actually one of the other cool things. Before I got sick in the photography world, I worked with a lot of nonprofits, and I met a woman named Dr. Shelley Hopitsky, who has a
mm,
nonprofit called the Global Sisterhood, and they do these things for girls and women locally and across the globe. And I was got connected with them again after I got back out in the world and was asked to be on their board of directors. So I'm actually have a board position there. And with that is she is this just amazing woman. And instead of having a documentary on her life, she wants it to be about 12 women in her life one of those, which will be me. So I will get to tell my
Oh,
Lyme
wow.
story in her docuseries. So, those of us that, can speak and can share, I mean, we have to, because it's the
Right.
quiet epidemic. It is an epidemic.
Yes.
We just have to acknowledge it.
Yeah, that documentary was so well done. I mean, The Monster Inside Me, Under My Skin, all those are good, but the Quiet Epidemic
Right.
seemed to cover more of the data and important information.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I would definitely, if someone's not in the know, that to me is a kind of a ground zero for folks to check out.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Wow.
the statistics, so, here in Pennsylvania, 11 out of the last 13 years, we've had the most confirmed cases, and I was able to be a part of something super cool. I did not know what I was getting into. I say yes to all these things, and then they always end up being cooler than I imagine. But I was able to be with the Center for Lyme Action and sit in some congressional hearings, and
Ooh.
it was amazing and really disappointing at the same time.
Mm.
So amazing the fact that I could sit there, with my representatives, or I should say their assistants. So I sat in on five with some other volunteers, and we had things we were asking for. So we're asking for more funding. We're asking the fact that there's I'm not going to tell you the statistics are not in front of me, and my Lyme brain does not allow me to make those long connections to numbers right yet. But it's something like 100,000 per patient for malaria, and like 1,000 for Lyme disease. Like,
Wow.
how,
Yeah.
how is that even a thing in our government when we have 500,000 people a year diagnosed? So, we
Right.
were able to, talk about, money and funding, and um these were for F-25, but they had the same thing last year. So there's fully funding of a Kay Hagan Tick Act. So there's all of this legislation. And if people are out there that want to get more into grassroots, the Center for Lyme Action, you can go on, you can be an advocate. They do a fly into DC, all virtual. And we sit and we are partnered with other people, and we talk to our senators and our congressmen and all the people that are signing these bills that everybody's trying to put in. And it's discouraging that one had a family member that um, had experience with Lyme, one had, kind of knew about ticks, but we're the top state for 11 to 13 years, and the staff and the politicians, they're not knowledgeable. So
Mm.
that's how else I'm trying to get involved is I'm in some um Republican Council women's groups to try to get in, and just really talk about awareness and ticks and Lyme, and and then all these people start telling me about their health because they know my health coaching background, and then I'm thinking in my head, well, is it Lyme? Because you're right. We would probably all test positive at this point because of how it's transmitted, because of the testing, because of, the nature of it all. But
Right. Golly. Well, you just are ramping up the pressure on a muzzle chat. And I mean, for all of us and for all the listeners, we all have a part to play in
yeah,
this. And it's in a selfless nature. I mean, for some, it could even be in a selfish nature.
right.
If in fact, like because you yourself or one of your loved ones and whatever, we just got to do our part because obviously it's to me unacceptable that these legislators and government officials that they're just not in the know. We can't allow all this ignorance, especially at all this, oh, what was I going to say, to all these people suffering on the
Mhm.
other hand, So we could ramp up the pressure. We could ensure they're educated, or we could ensure they're taking the proper steps. And if they're not, then we'll get people in
Mhm.
that will help,
Yeah.
that will create more solutions. It would be nice to see all of this magnified and sped up sooner versus later,
Mhm.
so we can start resonating on that level to really taking action. And we've covered it a lot here, but the most simple like course of action to take, which is huge, is basically making this very conversation go viral.
Mhm.
That maybe sound very selfish for a muzzle chat. Yeah, sure. But tell me I'm wrong. You know, we got to get the message out. Doesn't have to be the most catchy episode and I don't know, viral. Like, do we need to do a silly dance, epic fail,
Right?
booger out my nose? I mean, whatever. What do we got to do? Because just time's going by and we have opportunities passing us by to help others.
Mhm.
And I just hope we all seize this moment. And I know there's grave blessing for those that take these selfless acts. I don't know, just what it does even internally,
Mhm.
um, I feel is the greatest blessing, when you're helping out a stranger.
Yeah, and I think some of that is what has to happen next is to have a conversation with a stranger. So, I go to events and I meet all of these people, and my goal professionally is to connect. So, whether it's a coach for Lyme, or whether it's the Igenics lab with the new testing out, or I want to kind of play this kind of connector role, so to speak. But what I encourage everybody to do is talk to their family and friends, and we don't talk to strangers, but we also don't talk to our loved ones. We get ourselves isolated. But you
Mm,
know I was, sharing with one of my friends, and I found that, there was it's PA 100. It's a bill for Lyme disease patients in Pennsylvania. And they talk about 67 counties in the Commonwealth all have the black-legged tick. It's in Pennsylvania, like, we can't get away from it, so we have to look at, okay, well, we're in an industrial area, which means heavy metals, so no one's talking about detox, but we can. So, the bill is more insurance-based because we want to get recognition for insurance, right? We get denied disability even though we're disabled. We get denied insurance because we don't find the testing. But what you can do is talk to your family and friends, whether they're in politics or not, and say, okay, is there any legislation out there? If not, go to places like the P for Lyme, the tick action, and see what legislation is, how you can hop onto that. So
mm,
I was able to find out, that the PA 100, it's a top county that the congresswoman put it in April of 2023. It's May of 2024. So they put it in April of 2023. It went through some stuff in May, and then it got tabled in June. So it's been tabled an entire year,
wow.
and it would help Lyme patients in Pennsylvania get health coverage, get testing, get, the
Wow.
things that they need, and it's just sitting there. And politics should be set aside for that. That it shouldn't be a Democrat or Republican. That should be
Right.
the health crisis in the state of
Yes.
Pennsylvania and across
Yes.
America.
100%. Oh my gosh. A muzzled chat warriors, listeners, this is unacceptable. What can we do, Wendy, to spark that back up?
Finding out in your town, right? Just
Yes.
start literally boots on the ground. So, like, for me, I live in a township. So there's a township supervisor committee, and then there's the county, and then there's the state, and then there's different groups and committees.
Mm,
So it's, you know, uh, most people know there's somebody in their area that's in whether it's in politics, or knows somebody that's that person that knows everybody, right? So,
right.
just start having that conversation. And, for me, I took up there's a really wonderful grassroots organization called Americans for Prosperity, and they're for policy reform, local, state. And I do some volunteer work for them, and I do some boots on the ground. I do some surveys, and I talk about, the Senate race, and, everyone wants to talk about the presidential race, but what we
Right.
need to do is we need to talk about these Senate races and these, smaller races that
Mm,
those are the people that are going to support these bills, like the PA Line 100. Or, when I'm out talking to people, they're talking about the economy and how bad it is. Well, we're spending $40,000 on average to treat because insurance isn't covered. If we need an extra $11,000 because our economy is so bad right now with our government, like, what is that doing for all of us? Like, or I
mm.
shouldn't say all of us, the rest of us, right? I'm in a good
Wow.
spot, but
Wow.
there's it's so. it's all connected. I mean, it really
Yes.
is. We need, it's an election year. I mean, we need to be out there advocating and telling these politicians, look, you need to help us. If you help us, maybe we'll support you. Or,
Right.
or just say, hey, look, whoever will listen.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
Very well said. And the more we get organized and find those and bring that awareness to even platforms like this, like so anytime one of these running officials or individuals get an opportunity to be interviewed or something, this gets brought up. This gets talked about. And for those that are like, well, what do I care? I'm not in PA. It sounds like it's a Pennsylvania only issue. It's
Oh
not.
no, it's
It's
not
every
every
all
state.
50 states, my friends,
Yep.
all 50 states. It's just clearly heavier in certain ones. But are you kidding me? As though that tick can't crawl on someone, make it through the airport, come over here, or a bird or an animal,
Yeah.
or they say all biting insects have been connected to this too. And mosquitoes are part of that, which is, come on now, that's a big deal.
It is. It is a big deal. And you said it, it's in all the states, and and even if it's, if people are listening and they're not just specifically for ticks, I've studied MS a lot, and there's a lot of MS patients that also have Lyme. So it's not just the legislation for Lyme, it's whether it's other illnesses that are related. But nobody came to my rescue but me. So once I started to not associate with my disease, like my body had a disease, I stopped saying I had Lyme disease. And I started to realize, that I was the only one that was going to do this. Now I went all the way into genetics, and most people can't or won't do that. But
Mm.
the fact of the matter is that if I can be here today and you can be there, and by the way, you do look so much better than last time. Like you look healthier, it shows. So, you
Oh
know,
no, thank you.
we're putting in the work, and it's helping. And I know it's hard to take that first step, but there is hope. There's hope on the other side.
There sure is.
Yeah.
Well, were you talking about something potentially regarding funding? There's what other things might be coming down the pipeline here for Lyme folks?
Well, the appropriation asks, I mean, we are getting funding. With COVID, they're not allowed to, they're talking about Lyme now because of the overlap in the
Right.
studies. So, there's the fiscal 25 appropriation act. I mean, the amount of funding. So just for funding and tick prevention programs, the Center for Lyme Action is looking for 30 million. I mean, life-changing numbers, but those aren't going to happen unless we're talking to people in our legislation to say, hey, where are you spending our money? We're paying the taxes. We just need to help them make sure where they're spending our money. Um, so
Mm,
they're affordable testing from IGenics. They're having some at home testing. So instead of finding a
mm,
practitioner and all the expenses, so there's I've met some Lyme coaches. So there's this whole kind of, I don't want to call it an industry because it's not that at all, but this whole arena for all of us that are on the other side of Lyme, that have turned to coaches, that have turned to podcasters, that have, turned to help with the legislation, that, you know, with that awareness comes that, okay, now testing is going to be available, whether it's
mm.
genetic testing or it's the Lyme testing or the co-infection testing. I put on a webinar for America Friends and my friends in Australia because they don't even recognize Lyme. They recognize that they could leave Australia, come to America, get bit by a tick, and go back and have it, but they won't treat them because they don't have ticks there. Like just bizarro stuff. And but there's so much information out there, and we just all have to dig in and share. And I will be part of the clinical team, and people can find me through the Lyme Disease Organization. So the lymedisease.org, there's practitioner resources on there. There's resources for parents, for kids. So, there's all of these things that are out there, and, people like us are, able to help promote that along. And
Yeah. Golly, it's so important. I mean, literally today, David will do a little plug. He was on the podcast, Another Lyme Warrior, and he reached out to me. We're in fact going to be doing a bit of an episode tomorrow,
Cool.
and it's going to be an important one. Everyone be sure to tune in. He was talking, he brought up someone he's been in communication with in Australia, that he
Mm-hmm.
reached out to some distant like family members. He like tracked some down in Australia to advocate, to show up and help this individual, because it's not recognized there at all. Like
Yeah.
at all. The docs have zero solutions for these folks that are struggling with this horrific disease.
Yeah.
I mean, luckily, there's, like you were saying, pharmaceuticals didn't even work with you. So there's still a lot of things to do. But if they're on that struggle bus at a point where they really can't do very good by self-advocating, and like paving their own way out, like it gets that bad that if it's left up to that individual, that's essentially why it leads to suicide.
Yeah.
Because really it does become that bad that you can't really provide the solutions for yourself. And I want to say can't, because
Yeah.
there's always little steps to be taken that could improve situations, no matter
Yeah.
what. And some are the most basic, just can't really walk. Well, then crawl out into the sunlight, type of thing. Maybe call on a neighbor to provide better, like they have a filtered system for their water,
Mm-hmm.
and they can provide you water versus the tap. There's always additional steps to be had. Go. It just ramps up how important it is for us all. So once again, I don't care. It's repetitive, but I pray we all do our part
Right.
and kind of just see this opportunity. I mean, it's cool that you sat in on all of that and you could see the potential,
Yeah.
right? And you're bringing that to light for us. And it basically exposes the power we have, we the people. And it's to our benefit that we get involved in things like this.
Mm-hmm.
So for us to actually take this serious and do just that, we could bless millions of lives.
Yeah.
Well, Wendy, what else have you been up to?
Well, uh, lots of stuff, but that's all the big cool stuff. I get to advocate for Lyme. I get to talk about ticks. I get to, I get invited to some really cool events, and I've been getting to meet some super cool people. I'm back into photography, so um, I'm a small town girl. I'm the song. I'm the Journey song, and I moved to
Oh, cool.
Pittsburgh, this big city, right? And then I got sick, and I didn't get to experience it. But last Wednesday, I went to it was the Ecolution Gala. It was at the Pittsburgh, the Carnegie Museum, Natural Museum of
Wow.
Pittsburgh, and it was this fashion show, and everything was made from repurposed and recycled material. It was their Earth Day show, and I got to photograph, behind the scenes and photograph for the nonprofit that I'm on the board. And it felt so great to be back in that environment, photographing. But more so, I got to talk about ticks, and I got to talk about Lyme, and I got to talk about how I was able to be back in the world. And and that's the thing is I don't talk about my illness, talk about, oh, I had Lyme disease, because it changed my life in a good way. But I know that there's people out there that don't know that they're sick, and we can see it, right? You can see people now, I'm sure you can, that you're like,
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
uh those dark circles under your eyes are, that's not just because you didn't have sleep. Do you have mold, or do you have toxins, do you have something? So it's just wonderful that I got to go and experience the life that I thought I would have before I got sick. But I got to do it in a whole new aspect. And my brain's always going, thinking, okay, well, how can I, I have this whole art therapy piece that I did while I was sick to get my creativity back. And so I'm trying to, advocate for art and art therapy. It's how I don't want to say I was suicidal, but I was definitely in a dark place. There was points that I told, my closest friends that, I didn't like how I felt. But, I didn't have my outlet anymore. I didn't have my photography. I didn't have my creativity. But once I got that back, then, that dopamine change, that serotonin change, those neurotransmitters change. Like I rewired my brain to, not be in that place anymore. And,
Wow.
I'll tell everybody, the support groups are great. Sometimes they're
Yes.
difficult because people are sick, but anybody that's in a group with you or I mean, or David, or, there's so many of us in there, like message us, reach out to us, say,
Right.
hey, like we will all be there for you no matter what.
100%. I like where you just went there. And I know we skimmed over genetics again. I want to dive back into that, but
Yeah.
before we do, right there for anyone, solutions, those Lyme groups, support groups, and reaching out at a minimum, being vulnerable. I know it's tough, especially, I don't know, with this disease. It's like you could be all out of your being vulnerable at times,
Right.
it seems.
Right.
But to just put out what you're dealing with, and like for you, so what worked kind of for you to recap? I mean, did you do homeopathics and herbs or diet change?
I was on 8 different protocols for my 3
Mm,
different infections.
wow.
Um, so I would say the third one, I was diagnosed last June 5th, actually. Um, but I was clear by September. And with that, I contribute that I already cleaned up my diet. I already cleaned up my environment. I already was on a very specific nutrition plan based on my genetics, um,
Wow.
specific supplements based on my genetics. But um, I needed to focus on my liver. And so I was on serapeptase to help with my liver. And then I use a Rife machine. I use it in my second Lyme and I use it in my third. So,
An
it really,
actual Rife machine, or is it one of like the BCX frequency machine? Like what
I use the Rife Digital. So it's a
Rife?
digital machine. I have little pads that go on my hands, go on my feet, go on my belly, go on my head. Um, and I programmed it specifically for the Lyme, the co-infections, the heavy metals, the vitamin
Mm,
mineral deficiency. So I had it very specifically, and I would use it. I was using it every other day. Was doing the serapeptase, but I was really, really fine tuning. I already fine tuned my diet. I found out the hard way that I couldn't. Processed oxalates. So my doctor put me on a paleo diet. So I had spinach and almond salads that were literally poisoning me. So after the genetic testing, I pulled those out, and then oh my gosh, I started to have more energy, and my
mm,
homocysteine levels changed, and my vitamins and minerals started to balance because my body wasn't fighting what I was eating. So, I put in so much work those first 2 infections, over a few years, that the third one, my body was ready for it. And I
wow.
knew that genetically I couldn't, I probably wouldn't show positive on a test. So showing positive gave me hope that my body was in a healthy enough state to produce a response. Because genetically, I don't respond well to the testing.
Wow. That's a lot. That's awesome. And there's something to all that frequency stuff. I swears, like Rife.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've been using a BCX machine at a local doc. It's similar. It's just frequencies. I just hang on to some of these wands. I really feel like the really expensive protocols that I've done were just over the top didn't really do that much. It was the more basic,
Hmm.
like things such as detoxifying and then shifts on diet and certain herbs and nutritions and anti-parasitical, like so parasite cleansing
Right.
of affordable things we could do that have led to great breakthrough.
Yeah.
So regarding the genetics,
Mhm.
do you what do you recommend for people that are interested in that want to look into that?
Sure. I would say it depends. It depends on financing. It's not that expensive in my personal opinion. I mean, $300 you could have your genetics analyzed. and learn things that, it's not like your hair color or your eyes or anything like that. It's like, how do you handle stress, or how do you clear cortisol, or how do you process iron? And those are things that I can see very specifically in the 17 profiles that I analyze for Lyme patients. Is
Mm.
there's an iron piece in there, sometimes a copper and a zinc piece. Um, so I would say if you have 23andMe, Ancestry, any of those, there are companies that I work for or that I can analyze, and I could give you information right now just based on those reports. Or you can go through and work with a functional team. So rather than, let's say, a functional nutritionist or functional doctor, it's a functional genomics. So they will look at your genes and give you a very specific health plan, which essentially is what I did myself. Manually, I guess. So like I knew that I had some gene issues that I couldn't do a lot of onion and garlic, even though my functional nutrition background said I needed to eat a lot of garlic and onions to detox, which is right. But for me, my pathways don't work so well. So I have to pulse them.
Mm.
And it's funny because in my second protocol, we had to pulse the supplements, which it makes sense now looking back at those ingredients.
Wow. Aside from genetics,
Yeah.
IGenics, the lab you mentioned. So this is something, this is good news. This is kind of what's breaking, that it's not quite there yet, but they've kind of been I don't know, gold standard to an extent for blood work and testing and Lyme diagnosing for some time, it
Yeah.
seems. I mean, the few different naturopaths I've had lab and this and that, like they pretty much prefer the
Mhm.
IGenics over some others that are available. So they're working on creating an at-home, just kind of lab testing that we all could do.
Yes.
That would be
So
huge.
I don't have the details in front of me, but
Right.
anybody can call in and ask or go on their site. But they are working on an at-home test that is just the Lyme test.
Yeah.
So you can do it at home. You can do it affordable. She did write down they have the 4Bs for 12.99, which is the main ones. But I'm gonna show, if you, I don't know how well you can show my screen, but this is the test requisition form. And
Okay.
for if your people get to see the video, like this is
Yes.
like,
Wow.
it's not just a test. It's not just
Right.
Lyme disease. Like there's 2 pages of testing that cost, this one's co-infection, it's $1,700. This one, the Lyme panel, an immunoblot is $1,300. So, you know, it might sound expensive, but I spent over $60,000 of failed treatment and failed testing. And, so if there's a time that you're going to take a loan out or spend money to spend $1,200, right? Go do genetic testing or go get lab testing to confirm and do a path to healing. Like, really use your finances, I guess, the best way that you can. But, you know, it's not just Lyme, it's co-infections, it's Babesia, it's Bartonella. I mean, the
Right.
there is the National Institute of Health has a tick-borne illness working group. It started in 2017, and that's when I started to really put into research. And some of our military and our soldiers are at risk for Lyme and other diseases that they're bringing in, and they can't get treatment. Like the one woman, she's a pilot, and she had to stop her career because of Lyme disease. So,
Wow.
it's like it's not just, oh, it's Lyme disease, let me go do a test, let me do 2 weeks of doxy, I'm fine. Like that's not
No.
really how it works in the real Lyme community.
Right. Well, there's some more affordable things to look into as well. Like if you're not feeling well, mold is a big one. And we are all dealing with mold to a degree. You could even go to your local depot and get a little petri dish testing kit for like $10. And then I believe when you send it in, it might be like $40. So you could even test your environment
Right.
for bottom dollar just to see. And based on that, and that's where things could even just start there, because you really can't effectively address any illness or disease or the spirochete with mold present in the body. And more than likely, like mold wreaks havoc and can have those neurological effects as well.
Right.
So to hone in even on that could breathe life into you for further down the road,
Right.
kind of, if or it leads into Lyme, addressing that accordingly with more function and ability.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we have to lower our inflammation, right? And the
Yeah.
statistics you mentioned at the beginning about cancer, I mean, yeah, if we're not getting Lyme diagnosis, and there's a study by one of the doctors from the ILADS and Dr. Daniel Cameron and another Lyme advocate, and the study is that 60% is the effectiveness for doxy. So if that's the statistics, then 40% getting those 2 weeks of doxy are being untreated. So that is alarming to me. That's why I do my research. That's why I do my advocating, because
Right.
it wasn't just that I was misdiagnosed or undiagnosed because I couldn't handle a test. Even if I tested positive, there was no hope for me knowing my body makeup or anything. So, but
Right.
once I found that out, I've just zoom right into, okay, well, this doesn't work. I can pulse this or I can take this out. And then, next thing I know, I'm walking around the halls of the museum at close, wondering if the dinosaurs are going to come out, after the fashion show. So it's great.
Wow. Well, this has been a lot, and I think you've provided a lot of good sources and calls to action and brought some light. And I know there's big things around the corner. I know there's breakthroughs
Yeah.
regarding even the frequency testing. There's a lot of groups, it seems, honing in on that, and specifically with Lyme disease in mind,
Hmm.
and creating just kind of like Lyme protocols. And if in fact those machines are out of the budget, there seems to be like practitioners and doctors get onboarding these, so you can pretty much show up. Some of them will just even let you use these devices without even a charge, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool. So, because they're
Right.
in it for the right reasons,
Right.
and just to be aware and find what's available, I guess, in a sense, near you.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a page of resources on my site, and I want to add more. So if any of your listeners have things they want
Okay.
to share with you, they can share with me. I
Yes.
mean, that's what we need. And these, all these other nonprofits, that's their goal too, is, yeah, Pennsylvania, we're the big state, but you can get Lyme disease in California too. And the best place to get your resources if there's not a lot of Lyme is who has the most, and that's us in PA. So
Wow. That's a very good point. Glad
yeah.
you brought that up. Well, Wendy, it's been a pleasure. Do you have any burning desires? Anything else that you could think of that we missed here in this conversation?
I don't think so. I just the fact, I always say it, give yourself some grace, give yourself some time.
Hmm.
But there is a path. And if you don't have a doctor that's willing to help you, get a new one. Get a new doctor, advocate for
Yes.
yourself, whether you need a coach or you need a friend or you need, I've met so many people, and there's a new collection of books out there. If you go onto any of my social media or my website, I try to have links to books. So if you know maybe don't wanna reach out to somebody, but maybe you take comfort in it. I do audiobooks because I still struggle, and like you said at the beginning, I don't feel I have the symptoms of Lyme. I don't have the testing for Lyme, but I had it for so long. I have some things that are probably never gonna be fully functioning in my body. I mean, I've had surgery, so, everything's been rearranged, but we can get better. And I don't like to say that I'm better, because I'm better than was before I was sick. I wasn't advocating. I wasn't, connecting with people like you and David and other people in the Lyme community. I wasn't, meeting, these politicians that will make change, right? They are out there. So we just have to
Mhm.
find those of us that, the medical team that'll help us, the friends network, the family network. And, um, I think there's some big things coming up. And, anytime I have something else, I'll show you, I will share it. Because we are all in this together.
Yes, we are. I apologize. I just had an alarm go off, and you know what it was for? A petri dish, mold kit, testing
Ah,
kit. Yeah, it was like the 48 hours after. I have the instructions over here, and you're supposed to inspect and see if there's any type of spores or any type of
right,
growth. Because
right.
anyway, so yeah, I'm even because with some of my testing as of late, it's interesting because all these Lyme docs are Lyme, 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 and come to find out, like it's been such a freaking roller coaster. It's been such a journey. But come to find out, like my mold is increased since my initial diagnosis. Could be growing in me, could be environmental, just trying to get to the bottom of that and eradicate that. Anyway, so I'm just taking it serious and I'm testing that. So environments, what was I gonna say there? Come
Just
on.
how we have these times where sometimes we don't work right because this Lyme hijacked every system in our body.
It's yeah. Well, at the end of the day, our bodies are miraculous. Like what we can rebound from, what they can recover from, and miracles can take place. I mean, I don't know about you, but the biggest breakthroughs I've had to date have been working on my relationship with our creator. I mean, solely led to my biggest breakthroughs. So all glory to God. And I'm very grateful for that blessing and that gift. And that's what's really calmed my nervous system. Like he's just taken all of that away.
Right.
It's is I can't even put it into words. I just have nothing but gratitude. And I know, yeah, it's tough to hear it when you're in that place where there seems to be no way out, but it's like he's there to provide the ways out and the strength or whatever it takes and spin any challenge, any horrific situation into a beautiful thing.
Mhm. And there is definitely a I don't I don't like to use the term spiritual awakening, but I don't know how any other way to say it. But I really feel like those that I talked to on the other side of Lyme have came through that because we're so caught up in me, and this happened to me, and this happened to me. But
Right.
when we realize that God created us as beautiful beings and that we can heal and that we need to give ourselves some grace and give credit where credit is due, that it's in God's control. Like every time that I have tried to
Yes.
super grab a hold, guess what? Nothing moved. But when I let go and I give it to God, then the sky's opening up.
Wow. Yes. You just hit it home, Wendy. I'm so grateful that you, with your busy schedule, were able to take some time and breathe some light and hope. I think more than anything, after the conversations come to an end, you've brought hope and light in a sense of opportunities we have, like right now. And it is action based. And I just hope everyone listening can help send this message out at
Yeah.
minimum and have those conversations as you were saying.
Yeah. And if you can't speak, get someone to speak for you. Absolutely.
Yes. All right. Well, with that being said, Wendy, thank you so much for joining us again on Unmuzzled Chat. I really hope that we connect again soon and we could just bring more solutions and information. Hopefully, the ball gets moving and we can report on the impacts we're having, right? Just to, I guess, continue the proper momentum we need. I mean, at the end of the day, so many are suffering, and it would be such a blessing to them to bring solutions to light.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank
oh,
you
go
for
ahead.
having me back.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much, Wendy. Folks, thanks for joining us here on Unmuzzled. I hope this educated you a bit on this horrific disease and you want to learn more. And I just turn you towards that documentary, The Quiet Epidemic. You can access that one for free, right?
I think so at this point. They had a
Yeah.
screening of it across Pennsylvania at some of the local organizations.
Wow. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Check that out. Check out palime.org, lymedisease.org. See how you could get involved. See how you could even be charitable. Even if you're not dealing with this disease, you could advocate on behalf of some that are struggling with this horrific disease and seek some type of sponsoring or funding. People are in desperate need. Their lives literally are on the line. So, anything and everything you guys can do, especially just getting this message out, would be greatly appreciated. Be sure to check out our affiliations in the description below. I'm sure we'll add some additional links to Wendy, but I just want to thank you for tuning in, supporting us. Until next time, God bless you.